President Trump suggested that the US could take control of Ukrainian power plants to ensure their security during a call with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Istanbul following the arrest of opposition figure Ekrem İmamoğlu.
Israel launches an operation to retake a key corridor in northern Gaza in what it calls a limited ground operation. US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky have said that they have had a constructive call on Wednesday on moving towards a ceasefire between Kyiv and Moscow. The White House suggested that it would take control of Ukrainian power plants to ensure their security. In a social media post, Trump said his call with Zelensky was to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs, and that they were very much on track. On Tuesday, Trump held similar talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, during which Putin agreed not to target Ukraine's energy infrastructure, but refused to back a full 30-day ceasefire. The phone call is the first time Zelensky and American leaders have spoken since a fiery spat in the White House in February.
The EU's Foreign Affairs Chief, Kaja Kallas, has said the statements that followed the Trump-Putin phone call give a picture of how things are going in the US brokered negotiations for a ceasefire in Russia's war on Ukraine. Speaking live on Euronews Europe today, Kallas noted the differences in the statements from the US and that of the Kremlin and said it was important to follow that of the US.
The EU and Brussels. I think it's really good to see how these things are going. President Trump was very clear. The aid to Ukraine was not discussed, but President Putin said that it was discussed. So I rather believe President Trump in this.
Kallas described the current US-led talks as shuttle diplomacy and said Europe will have a seat on the table when formal negotiations on a peace settlement begin.
There is no table where Russia and Ukraine are sitting right now. It's a shuttle diplomacy. US is talking to Europeans, US is talking to the Russians, US is talking to the Ukrainians. Of course, any deal to really work, you need the Europeans to be around the table and agree to the deal, because the implementation of the deal has to be in the hands of Europe.
The EU's top diplomat also said there is no wedge between Brussels and the Trump administration. She urged both sides to remain united in the face of Russia's aggression in Ukraine.
I don't see any wedge there. And of course, Russia really wants to see US and Europe divided, because then they are much stronger. If we are divided, let's not give them that.
Kallas has tabled a proposal to release a staggering 40 billion euros in fresh military support for Ukraine. The draft proposal, seen by Euronews, would see participating countries pitching with pledges, meaning it would not require the unanimous approval of all 27 EU member states.
Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Istanbul on Thursday despite a demonstration ban implemented by local authorities. People are protesting against the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, Istanbul's mayor, who is also a key rival to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Bu yapılanlar kesinlikle hukuksuz. Hukuksuz ve temelsiz. Bu demokrasi değil.
The mayor's Republican People's Party criticized the arrest and claimed Erdogan targeted İmamoğlu as he feared losing to him in the ballots.
Yapılan iş bir darbedir. Bir darbe girişimidir.
The Turkish Minister of Justice countered these allegations and said that the courts operate independently.
Tarafsız ve bağımsız yargının gerçekleştirmekte olduğu soruşturmaları farklı taraflara çekmek, darbe gibi ifadelerle nitelendirmek son derece tehlikeli ve yanlıştır.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen expressed deep concern over the arrest. She reminded Turkey of its obligation to uphold democratic values.
We want Turkey to remain anchored to Europe, but this requires a clear commitment to democratic norms and practices, and it is key that Turkey respects these fundamental principles.
Prosecutors have accused Imamoglu of corruption as well as aiding the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party.
Israel launched an operation to retake part of the key Netzarim corridor in northern Gaza, which splits the enclave in half in what it calls a limited ground operation. While Israel's defense minister Israel Katz warns that the army plans to step up attacks, putting an end to a 2-month ceasefire with an intensity that you have not seen.
תקיפת חיל האוויר נגד מחבלי החמאס הייתה רק הצעד הראשון. ההמשך יהיה קשה בהרבה, ואתם תשלמו את מלוא המחיר.
Israel put an end to the ceasefire with Hamas, which had been agreed in January when it resumed bombings on Tuesday, killing over 400 people, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. On Wednesday, one UN worker was killed in a strike on the UN guest house.
Israel knew that this was a UN premises, that people were living, staying and working there. It's, by the way, a compound, a guest house where most of us also stay, not only from UNOPS, but also from other UN agencies.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says Tuesday strikes were only the beginning and that Israel would press ahead until it achieves all of its war aims.
Viktor Orban, Hungary's rightist prime minister, awarded Italy's deputy prime minister Matteo Salvini with a Medal of Honor for what he called defending traditional Christian values and fighting migration. At the awarding ceremony in Brussels, Orban applauded the United States administration migration policy.
Az Unió nem lehet olyan pénzügyi hálózat, amelynek célja a nemzeti kormányok meggyengítése. Arra a takarításra, amit a barátaink most Amerikában végeznek el, szükségünk lesz itt Brüsszelben is.
Matteo Salvini is the leader of Italy's far-right anti-migration Lega party. During his acceptance speech, he denounced the EU Commission's €800 billion defense plan and called on the EU to take concrete action to ensure peace.
Il presidente Trump era al telefono con Putin per parlare di pace, mentre oggi il presidente Trump era al telefono con Zelensky per parlare di pace. In questi palazzi c'è qualcuno che parla di guerra, che prepara la guerra, che parla di armi, e io non penso che il futuro dell'Europa sia la terza guerra mondiale. Quindi penso che qua ci sia gente che vuole pace. Pace, lavoro, serenità, benessere.
Salvini has previously been accused of migrant kidnapping over his refusal to let a migrant rescue boat dock in Italy in 2019. The Italian court acquitted him last year.
The European Commission has unveiled its action plan on steels and metals, which aims to boost the competitiveness of a sector under pressure. The industry is currently confronted with the Chinese overcapacity, which is pushing prices down, as well as US tariffs on 25% on steel and aluminium. The Commission will open an investigation to assess the impact of US custom duties on the aluminium market.
So what we also do is code the coals of steel. What will also happen is that more of the steel flows will come into Europe, and so if we do not respond, so Chinese or other steel will start and is already there, but start even more flooding the European market, and that will not enable the transition of the European companies, which have to invest billions of euros in investments to go for decarbonization.
Euronews looked into the state of the industry at Tata Steel in the Netherlands. The sector is also facing high energy prices that undermine its competitiveness. The EU Action Plan aims to ensure that the industry has access to clean and affordable energy.
But currently there's quite some CO2 emissions in steel, but with the new technology it will really decrease, and we will move in 2045 to zero. With the new process, certainly if we introduce hydrogen and other renewables, we will be close to zero in that phase. So then it is clean from the CO2, and what we have done in our plan here is to look directly at all other emissions.
The EU executive also wants to reform the carbon border adjustment mechanism to avoid companies that comply with European environmental standards from being penalized in the international market.
En tant qu'Européens, nous avions deux choix possibles, soit accepter que l'Europe ne soit plus compétitive sur l'acier et perde notamment progressivement ses capacités de production. Et la conséquence, c'est de devenir progressivement également dépendant sur ce secteur-là, soit préserver une industrie dont nous avons besoin pour la construction, l'automobile ou encore la défense. Le choix a été clair, l'Europe doit sauver son acier.
With the steel industry supporting over 2.6 million jobs, the stakes are high.
Two NASA astronauts stuck in space returned to Earth on Tuesday, hitching a different ride home to close out a saga that began with a bungled test flight over 9 months ago. Within an hour, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were out of their capsule, waving and smiling at the cameras, while being hustled away in reclining stretchers for routine medical checks. They both arrived at the International Space Station, ISS, early June last year and were to return home no more than 10 days later.
The International Space Station program, the Commercial Crew program, and SpaceX came up with the plan that we just witnessed. The Crew 10 launch last week, the docking over the weekend, the undock early today, and then the landing that we just witnessed.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
Their SpaceX capsule parachuted into the Gulf of Mexico early Tuesday evening, just hours after departing ISS. Splashdown occurred off the coast of Tallahassee in the Florida Panhandle, bringing their unplanned odyssey to an end.